All right, good morning. I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. My name is Nori Yoshida. I am the Senior Product Manager for a product called Communities. If you've been to Mark's keynote yesterday, you'll know that we're doing a lot to try to make enterprise more social. And today I'm really excited to have two guest speakers with us today who are kind of the leaders in social media and engaging your customers online. So hopefully, you can learn from how they thought about and how they approach social media, and also, kind of the lessons learned and the successes they've had with our help. So before we start, a quick safe harbor statement. You're not going to hear a lot about the product roadmap or anything like that today, but if questions do come up about that, please remember to make any purchasing decisions based on things that are available today. And obviously, things in the future are things that we plan to do, but plans do change. So today, I'll start by talking a little bit about some of the community products that we have at Salesforce, and then I'll pass it off to Nancy Richardson from Starbucks. Starbucks was recently recognized as one of the most engaged brands on the internet by an independent firm. So they're definitely on the leading edge in this space. They've done a lot of experimentation, not just with products like Ideas, but also kind of across the board with Twitter and Facebook, and a lot of concepts like that. Then we have John Regan from FICO, who will be speaking next. FICO's online community has also recently won an award from Forrester, the Forrester Groundswell Award, I think, for this year. So they've also been recognized for really being a leader in sort of the B2C, the B2B market in terms of engaging customers online. So, from the Starbucks perspective, it's more of a B2C perspective. You also get sort of the B2B perspective as well. So social media really works kind of in both areas. To introduce two of the products that we have today, we have Salesforce Answers, which is something that we recently announced, and the idea behind that is sort of to, both of the products are really to engage your audience and have them help you, sort of create business value. If you know websites like Yahoo Answers or LinkedIn Answers, Salesforce Answers is a very similar concept. It's really to try to get sort of the tribal knowledge that's kind of stuck in people's head, whether it's employees or your customers, and try to get them down into a searchable database. On the Answers side, this is a product that you guys are probably very familiar with. We essentially took discussion boards and the concept of sort of community engagement, and then specialized it for feature requests. So when I first came on board to Salesforce, one of the things that was a huge problem was trying to get feedback from customers, ideas, feature requests that go into support, and then transition that back to the product managers. A lot of times that sort of connection back to the product managers who are making decisions on the features were lost. And so with Salesforce Ideas, what we could do is the product managers could directly speak to the customers and get their feedback on the features, the features and sort of ideas that they wanted implemented. So one of the things that with Salesforce Answers is about a year ago or so, I asked our support center how much it cost for us to field support calls. And they told me it was $30 on average for every single support call that came into the call center. And with the whole Service Cloud initiative, what we're trying to do is not only help lower those costs, but also to connect people who are your customers who are really on the web, and that's really where they go when they search for answers. They don't necessarily call into the call center. They're searching on Google, and if they can find their answer there through something like Salesforce Answers, if you have that sort of enabled on your site, that deflects calls and it can save your company money. So at Salesforce, doing a discussion board is saving us about $250,000 a year. So Ideas and sort of the discussion board is saving us a lot of money. So I've already talked a little bit about Ideas, so what I think I'll do now is turn it over to Nancy to talk about her experiences with Starbucks, social media, and how Salesforce has helped in that area. All right, thanks, Nancy.
Thank you. Hi. Thanks for rolling out of bed so early in the morning. As Nori said, my name is Nancy Richardson, and I'm here speaking on behalf of our digital strategy department at Starbucks. And we have Jeff Baker here, one of my counterparts from Starbucks as well. So after this presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to pull one of us aside and we can answer any individual questions you might have. So we're here to really talk about ideas and how we use ideas and how we use ideas to collaborate and build relationships with our customers. And I thought it would be really valuable to talk a little bit about our Starbucks customers in general, how we use Starbucks communities and how we've started to connect with our customers through online communities over the past 18 months or so, some of our recent innovations, and then how we kind of connect that online experience and offline experience in our stores, which is really important for a retail business like Starbucks. So this is kind of the way we talk about our company in general, not really an online statement, but we are all about people, and we're all about relationships, from where we source our coffee, relationships with our farmers, with their families, making sure that we support them to provide the best coffee to us so then we can provide the best coffee to you as our customers. And online communities aside, it's really about creating those relationships, supporting our baristas in the stores, and making the connection between people. And we always say we're in the people business serving coffee, and that's really our motto. And we've carried that over into our online experiences. So this is a very simple slide, but I think it was worth pointing out. And it seems intuitive, but I think a lot of companies forget to do this part when you're building a community, which is when you're building a community or building a business in general, but to think about what you think your customers want and what they really want. So making sure that you do that gap analysis before you start. With our community, My Starbucks Idea, we built it, and then about 12 months later we went back and went, is this what our customers really want? And we actually went back and did that gap analysis and realized that there were some things that we were actually executing that were the wrong things. So you can really set yourself up for success if you start here first and do that analysis from making sure that you're providing the right design, making sure that you're communicating in the right way and that you're satisfying that gap, making sure that you have the right service recovery in place and making sure you're satisfying that gap so that 12 months later you're not like Starbucks going back and going, we forgot to do this and now we need to go back and fix some of these things. So I'm really proud of this slide. I love this slide because it makes me feel like we did so much over the last 12 months. Actually, these are, the last 12 months or so. It's interesting to put it down on paper. If you look at our Facebook following, we started out early. Our fiscal year is from September to September, so that's why this timeline is this way. But you can see we started out with 30,000 fans on Facebook, and now we're up to 5 million. What are we at, Jeff? Over 5 million? Over 5 million Facebook fans. And this is just a testament to show you really have to know what your customers are doing and where they're at, and you need to go where they are. And make sure that you know what's happening in this space, because if you're continuing on in your offline world, not really realizing what's going on here, that's a big miss for your company. And Starbucks recognized that, and because we're so relationship-oriented, it was a good fit for us to start building these communities. So we started with what we call our earned channels, so platforms that we don't have a lot of control over necessarily, like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, but we can brand a space on those platforms. Then there's platforms like Starbucks B2B. You see that symbol up there under the Groundswell Award. Starbucks B2B is an owned community at Starbucks, so we've built that from the ground up internally inside our company. And then across here, you can see just some of the successes, and if you're a Starbucks customer, you probably have recognized some of these things over the past year. We ran an IMIN inauguration type of campaign around volunteerism, which I'll show you a slide on that and what we did there. It's all about being relevant in these communities, so real time, you have to be able to know what's important, not just within your company, but what's happening out there. So the IMIN campaign is a great example of on that day, we wanted to be relevant, we wanted to speak about volunteerism in our stores, and we wanted to offer our customers a free cup of coffee if they were willing to pledge their hours. So that was exciting. And then we started moving across the year, and you can see Free Pastry Day is another interesting one. That's one where we really started to tie that online to offline experience to test whether we could create an online experience within our Facebook group to then drive our customers into the store with a digital coupon for a free pastry. So just starting to think about innovative ways to connect those two things. Innovation. So this is a fun slide too. We've launched 49 ideas. We have over 700,000 votes, over 80,000 ideas, and over 200,000 users. These are big numbers because we're a really big company, so take them for what they're worth. And if you're a smaller company, you don't feel overwhelmed by this, but it just is another testament to say people want this and they want access to this information and they want to be able to connect with your company in a really easy way where they're at. So everybody's online today, they're on Facebook, they're on these social communities, they get it, they understand how they work. And so by providing this, we're playing now in a space where our customers are. It makes it really easy for them to connect with us, to share what they think we should start developing, what they want to see in the stores. And so some of these things you might have recognized. We've launched a mini card, that green card up there. 2 hours of free Wi-Fi, although I know many of you probably want to see free Wi-Fi in our stores, which hopefully that will be coming soon. What else do we have? Red. You'll see Red, in our stores. We launched that last December. And again, we've got a big push in our stores right now for our Red campaign. So exciting stuff, and it's really fun to see for our customers to feel like they're now playing a part in our innovation at Starbucks. So this is the Pledge 5 site that I was talking to you about before, and this is a really interesting one as well. It was a fun campaign to run, but we also built this experience literally in, 21 days? Yeah. And we have Laura here from Apereo, and she and her team helped us build this, and they really led the development on this one. We built it on the Force.com platform using sites, and Apereo did the development. And I was sitting in my VP's office in December, and he goes, "Hey, inauguration is coming up. We should do this, and we should have everybody pledge hours, and when they come in our stores, they get a free cup of coffee, and it's going to be a great idea. Oh, and by the way, we need to build the site." And so that's another thing with Salesforce that I've been extremely impressed with, is their ability to be nimble, flex with our business, and a business like Starbucks where we change our mind a lot and we need to move quickly, they're able to do that along with Apereo's help. So we actually, our goal was to get 1 million hours pledged, and we actually had a little over 1.25 million hours pledged, 221,000 visits, 4 minutes on the site. That's actually a long time. I don't know for any of you that have online communities right now, but for customers to come on and spend 4 minutes on this site looking through volunteer opportunities, that is a pretty big accomplishment. So we were proud of this one, and we're continuing to build on this campaign into the future with our volunteer efforts. So Starbucks Store, so this is a fun slide where it's really talking a little bit about that kind of online, offline component. So for any of you who have that are in retail companies, this would be relevant to you, which is how do you take that online experience, which is really interesting, and you can see we have 200,000 users and 700,000 votes, and that's all really cool, but you have to ask yourself, what does that mean at the end of the day? What does that mean to my business? How is it driving profitability? And so that's when we started to connect these things. You'll see in our stores we have these tags, inspired by you, keep them coming, you asked for it. And these are attached to our products in stores that tell you whether or not that was an idea that came from my Starbucks idea. So it's an interesting way to use our offline store atmosphere to indicate to our customers, we are listening to you, and we are a huge company, but we hear you, and we're actually innovating some of the ideas that you're suggesting. So goals. This is really just a piece of advice and learning as we go. We've learned a lot over the last 18 months after launching My Starbucks Idea. Focus your goals, because if you try to do too much all at once, you won't be successful. As you start to land these goals, then you can create new goals, but really keeping it simple, communicating the value, and building the internal support team and advocacy for this program is really important. And figuring out different ways that you can engage your users. So it goes back to my first slide, which is what do your customers really want versus what you're providing them. You really have to have a good grasp of that so that you can engage them in the right way. For example, do they like to be recognized? If they do, then maybe you want to put badges on your site that show, you know, amazing users or new users or level of users, level of contribution. If they don't care about that, you might not want to spend $50,000 creating badges on your site. So making sure that you're investing in the right things. Execution is good, but not it's always a risk when you're executing on the wrong things. Let's see. So building internal support, I want to go back to that one because that's an important aspect. Whenever we do a really big launch, typically leadership is behind it, they're behind it, and then the next promotion. And we forget about it. And this is something that really needs to scale and sustain itself. And you need to continue to get in front of leadership, especially in a big company like Starbucks, to make sure that they're supporting it. We have 40 moderators who moderate our My Starbucks Idea site. And so we need to make sure that all of those teams across the company are still supporting those people who are responding back to our community. So very important. Tracking progress. We're just starting to look at social media monitoring, which is, okay, we can track ideas, votes, users. That's all pretty easy. We can track launched ideas, but what are people saying and what's the sentiment in the community? I want to know, is this ideas community and the conversation going on, is it 80% negative and 20% positive? That's really important to know. Are there bullies in the community? So we have really aggressive users on the site that actually, I think, may contribute to driving people off the site. So I want to know that. I want to know if this specific user is a negative aspect to the site. So we really haven't done much in that space, but that's where we're moving towards. So ideas have led to huge success for us in innovation and the products we've innovated and the experiences that we've provided in our stores. One thing I wanted to point out, though, is it's not necessarily how big the number is or how many votes you get. It's really important to think about the fact that we have these sleeper ideas, which are great ideas, but nobody really sees them, and they just kind of get lost under all of these thousands of ideas. So making sure that you have somebody that can pull great ideas out. And we do this by having meetings, moderator meetings, twice a month. And we have people who are looking at the site and pulling out sleeper ideas for us to look at. And then, of course, we have the huge top ideas, which those are easy because they rise to the top, and so you can see those. And we escalate those to leadership right away. And then there are some where, for example, the Starbucks Gold Card, that's an idea that our customers had and put out there. They didn't know we were working on it, but we were already working on it. And so that's valuable too. Even if you have your customers validating an idea, you can go back to your product team and say, hey, FYI, we're getting thousands of votes on this, so good job, keep moving towards that. Or they might be innovating on it, and you might say, hey, here's a piece of information that might help you maybe tweak what you're gonna launch in a couple months because we're hearing this from our customers. So it's not just about the top idea, it's about looking at the ideas through different categories and the value they might provide. So keep innovating. I'm always, you know, kind of like a mad scientist trying to think, what's the next new big thing? How could we enhance the community? What else could we be doing? And these are just a couple of things, but always thinking, even though you have those focused goals, to be thinking outside the box and pushing the envelope and thinking about what else you could do. In this space, it's really important not to get comfortable or stagnant. You have to keep innovating, and you have to keep iterating on what you're developing. And with that, I will introduce John from FICO.
So, thank you, Nancy, and thank you all for coming out early this morning again. So I work for a company called FICO, and my name is John Reagan, and what I would like to do is first tell you a little bit about who FICO is. Just been a couple of minutes. Our brand is probably not as recognized as Starbucks, so just to give you a little background on who we are, that's helpful in understanding the next three things I want to talk about, which is why we built the online community. Now, our community is a B2B community, so you're going to get a contrast here today between a B2C community versus a B2B community. There are lots of similarities, but there are some differences, the most obvious one being the scale. You know, hundreds of thousands or millions, actually, of users versus a few thousand users. But nevertheless, even despite the scale, there are still some very, very good reasons for a B2B community. And there's a lot of commonality, actually, between B2C and B2B. So I'm going to explain to you the why of the community, the what of the community, what did we put in our community, so that you understand that. And that relates back to the why. And then I'm going to show you how we built it, at least at a high level. So first of all, who is FICO? The brand is probably most well known for the FICO score, or your credit score. The score that people who give lend money for mortgages or lend money to buy cars or give you credit cards, they use this score to decide whether they're going to whether you're credit worthy and whether they're actually going to loan you money. But we do a lot of other things. We operate primarily in 4 industries: banking, insurance, retail, and healthcare. The top 2 here, banking and insurance, are the primary focus of the community. So at this time, the community is focused on those 2 industries. And today I'll talk mainly about banking and I'll talk mainly about credit cards because it's the easiest thing for everybody to understand in terms of what we do. So we offer a full set of full life cycle of products. It's all decision management related, or to making decisions. So we help banks, for example, decide who they should be promoting credit cards to. And then once they've decided that, then somebody says, well, I want one of your credit cards. And they have to decide, well, are we going to give you one or not? Are you credit worthy? Once you have the credit card, they need to decide whether they're going to manage their risk. Do they raise your credit limit, maybe lower your credit limit? Those decisions have to be made. Next is collections and recovery. Unfortunately, sometimes people don't pay. And when people don't pay, there's lots of things you have to decide. The most obvious thing is, did they just forget to pay and they're actually a really good customer? And if you send them a letter, it's going to make them unhappy and you might lose a really good customer and you need to just kind of be patient. Or is there some distress there and you need to get active in order to collect? And then finally, there's things that go across the entire life cycle. Most of the credit card transactions in this country come through our software. Looking for fraud, lots of you, I'm sure, have gotten those calls saying, did you buy such and such with your credit card? Well, our software probably triggered that, raised that as a red flag because it probably went outside your normal buying patterns. So that's who we are. The next thing is why build it? And there's lots of reasons for it, but I think the most fundamental thing is to ask yourself why you're here today. Why did you come to Dreamforce? And there's lots of reasons why you come to Dreamforce. You obviously want to hear what's the next big thing in the product, and you want to know information, what's coming down the pipe, what does the roadmap look like, how can I use this stuff? And that's really, really important, but equally important, perhaps maybe even more important, is you want to talk to your peers. You want to find out how they're using the product or solution that's being provided. What have they done that's made them successful with the product? What have they done that wasn't so good? And to really help you with that learning. So you have a natural affinity to others that are using the same vendor and products because you can really learn from each other. And that's a really key thing to understand in terms of why you would build a community. And then there's a whole bunch of other things associated like that. One that's really important is that you would like to influence the vendor in terms of what they're going to put in the product. And you would like to have a voice in that. Everybody feels that way, and it's extremely important. So recognizing that, that sums it up is that you want to increase your company's success and you want to increase your own success. That's this has been going on for years. We've been having users conference. Everybody joins them. So that's a really obvious thing. But there are two things that are changing. One is, we talk about it all the time, the rate of change in business is accelerating and continuing to accelerate. Things have changed a lot in the last 2 years with banks. And they're going to change even more in the future with regulation. For insurance companies, healthcare insurance in particular is going to change. There's going to be a lot of change there with regulation. So they really have a need to be networking and talking with people to understand how these changes are going to affect their business. Now, we can do that once a year at a conference or something, but it's really more effective to be able to do that all the time. And one of the things that had happened is the internet has really changed. I think we've all noticed that. It's no longer just a place for posting information. It is, in fact, a community where people come and interact. A couple of examples. LinkedIn has 50 million members in 200 countries. And that's mainly for business reasons. That's people wanting to network for business reasons. Facebook, huge. 300 million users, probably more by now. It's the size of the United States. I mean, the thing is enormous. 100 million or more people log on every day. And the really interesting thing about Facebook, if you don't already know this, the fastest growing demographic in Facebook is 35 years of age and older. It's not a bunch of college students anymore. It's people who are networking, and a lot of it is for business reasons. There are over 25 million user groups on Facebook. So people are really embracing the internet as a community where they can interact with each other. So when you look at this change and you look at the way they're embracing the internet as a place to interact and exchange, we realized that we needed to build something that would empower our customers with a vibrant community where they could come 24/7 from anywhere in the world and they could interact, to talk about what they were doing with our products, what was being successful, to find out what the next big thing is that's coming down the road, and to help them be successful. We really do sincerely want to help our customers be as successful as they can possibly be with our products. There's also some reasons that we have for wanting it, and I think one of the top things is customer loyalty. You heard this in Nancy's presentation as well. It's a really common thing, that they want to create loyalty with their customers. We want to do the same thing. We want to create loyalty, and when you have a vibrant community, when you come to a conference like Dreamforce, and there's all these people here, and you can talk to them and you can learn things, that vibrant community reinforces your confidence in your ability to be successful with that solution. And so we want to create that, but we want to create that in a way where they can do that all year long. It also attracts new prospects. Very important. We want to get new customers. And so if new prospects are looking at a solution and they see that vibrant community that's very supportive and they see that they can be successful, that's very, very important to attracting new customers. And then finally, we wanted to accelerate learning from our customers. Our customers are going to talk regardless of what you do. It behooves you to facilitate that and to allow yourself to become engaged in that conversation, perhaps if it's appropriate, but at least be able to observe and learn from the conversations that your customers are having. That's very important. When I talked about who we are and what we do as a business, the one-liner that we use to describe us is that we are a leader in decision management that transforms our customers, one, by making every decision count. I mean, we transform customers. You buy our fraud solution, you get 50% cut in fraud. If you buy our collections systems, you get a 30% improvement in collections. We transform our customers, but we needed to provide a way for our customers to transform us, to make us a better solution provider for them. So that's one of the key things that we felt was very important to us. So what does it do? Well, there's 4 key functional areas that we defined that we felt we needed to provide, and one of the key ones, the first one I'll talk about is ideas. It's our ideas exchange. It utilizes Salesforce Ideas. I think most of you are familiar with it. Our customers can come and they can post ideas. They can vote on them so that the most popular ideas rise to the top. Very importantly, they can comment on those ideas. So I got to tell you that when we first started talking about doing this internally, there was a lot of concern. And I think that I would summarize the concern is that what people were saying is that if you put this out there, some customer is going to come and they're going to post some really wacky idea, and it's going to get voted up to be one of the top or the most, the highest rated idea. And then there's going to be this expectation that we're going to implement that idea. And then what are we going to do with this wacky idea? But our management was courageous, and they said, let's move forward. We did, and guess what happened? Within about 2 days, some customer came and posted some really wacky idea, and it got voted up to be the #1 idea. And let me tell you what that idea was, and why you might see that we thought it was a little bit wacky, is that we have a system. It's a rules management system. And basically, in a nutshell, what it does is it allows business people to say, these are the rules for making a decision. And you put this in the system, you put it in your process flow, and you automate the decision. And the rules for making the decision aren't scattered all around in code. They're all in one place where they can easily be changed. And the business users can tweak those rules and change those rules so that they're making better decisions. They're improving on their decisions. And the wacky idea was we would like to upload those rules from Excel. And so the folks were looking at it, product management, professional services decided to wade in on the discussion with comments and said, well, we have all these sophisticated facilities for uploading rules, and we really don't think this is the best approach, and the approach we have is this, and this is what we think is best for you to use. And kind of the marketing folks, I work in the marketing organization, we were sitting around looking at it, did we just tell one of our customers that they had a bad idea? Is that the right thing to do? And so we were really nervous about that. But what then happened is that the customers came back in, and they started commenting. And they said, yeah, we understand that, but are you aware that we have to do this? And when we interact with our business users, we have to do this. And if we had this, this would really help. And the conversation continued online. And people started looking at that in particular product management, and all of a sudden they started to realize, well, maybe this idea does have merit. And they actually continued some of those discussions offline. At the end, in less than a year, the formerly wacky idea was in the product because our customers transformed us. And Ideas is a perfect example of something that we were able to leverage to transform ourselves and make us a better provider to our customers. We have discussion forums. I think it's kind of got a mind of its own. We have discussion forums as well. So Ideas is great for posting ideas and talking about ideas. Answers is great. We don't use Answers right now because we haven't tied this into our support organizations. Answers is great for tracking solutions to problems, but what do you do when customers want to talk about best practices? What do you do when they say, how did you solve this particular business problem and how does this work? And discussion forums are the answers. Now, again, there was concern internally within the organizations with rolling this out, because what if you get a whole bunch of questions about business process and how you do things in the product and what's the best way to implement such and such? And we could get overrun with questions that we couldn't respond and keep up with our customers. And so there was a lot of concern about that. But we pushed on, and what we found is that actually over 90% of the questions that are asked are answered by other customers. In fact, the customers don't want us answering them. They want to hear from each other. So it's a relatively small number of things that they actually desire us to answer, and so we get a lot of customer interaction, which is what we wanted to accomplish. Just to give you some numbers, again, the scales are different. We're small. In about a year, we've had about 1,200 posts. It doesn't sound like a big number, but when you consider the fact that we've got over 4,500 registered. That doesn't mean that that's the only people, but registered members of the community. It's creeping up towards 5,000. It's a pretty good number of posts. The really stunning statistic on this is that we get about 250,000 page views per 250,000 page views per quarter. So a lot of people are coming in and really reading this stuff. So there's a real hunger for this in terms of customers wanting to interact and just as we expected, view what's going on, understand and see what's the best practice and how to solve the problem. Next is a resource center. We try to do a media-rich, as media-rich as possible with demos and videos of customer success stories and recorded webinars and these types of things. You might ask, well, isn't all this on your so-called corporate website, FICO.com in our case? And yep, it's all there, but it's mainly in the community because you need to have a convenient way for people to find it. If they're in the community, they want to be able to go to it quickly and easily. It's also hooked into our back-end marketing systems, which I'll talk about in a second. And we want to know if people are accessing this content from the community versus somewhere else. And so this is all instrumented. The next is a download center. We've always done downloads. We have trial software that you can come in and download. But they had to go through the sales organization to get this. What we did is we made it self-serve, like a lot of companies do. So nothing really new here. But what happened to us is that it dramatically increased the number of downloads. Now, sure, some of those downloads are by students and other things, but a lot of them are people that are genuinely interested in evaluating and possibly purchasing our products. So this has been a dramatic increase in downloads. And I'll just sort of sum it up with one statistic. The community, as a result of this and the Resource Center and the other things, has now become the second leading source of leads for us. So the community, in terms of its business, what it's produced in terms of business has been huge. It's been very successful. I'm not going to talk about this too much. It's a user experience thing, which is very important, but people who work, let's use banks again, in fraud don't deal much with collections. And so we wanted to provide a way that when you come into the community, you could get content that was tailored to your specific interests. So we came up with the notion or the concept of neighborhoods. And we created neighborhoods within the community. At the same time, we made the navigation to go back and forth between neighborhoods if you decided to go into another neighborhood very, very easy. And the reason for that is decisions are becoming more connected. Something that happens in fraud affects collections and vice versa. So, if you see something going on in collections for something like a credit card, it may be an indication that you may see something going on somewhere else in the system. So we wanted to make it very easy for them to move back and forth. So how did we build it? Well, I think the one word is quickly. We wanted to roll this thing out in 4 months in time for our annual users conference because we wanted to promote it at our annual users conference. And oh, by the way, when they told me that they wanted to do this, they said, you know, IT is really, really busy. You really can't talk to them. Maybe a little bit, but you got to build it without IT more or less. So that led us that it needed to be built completely in the cloud, and it is. One of the very first things we did, though, is we said, look, we know that a cornerstone of this thing is going to be Salesforce, so we went to Salesforce and we asked them, look, we got a pretty good idea of where all the cloud services are going to come from that we're going to use in this thing, including yours. Could you make a recommendation on an integrator that could help us weave this thing together? And they did. It's a company called Reside. They are, in fact, here at the show. And the solution we put together is a Force 40, one of the recognized Force 40 solutions for technical innovations. And I'm sure that they'll be happy to explain more. I'll tell you a little bit about it. We were able to build the first neighborhood. Actually, we built it in 6 weeks. The first 2 weeks were, part of that time was used to resuscitate me after they told me how fast they wanted to build it. And then the rest of the time was finding Reside and our integration partner. So we did it in iterations. We built the first iteration out in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, depending on how you want to count. And then the remaining neighborhoods were built in another 8-week period. And it was released on time and used and heavily promoted at our users conference. Let me just do one more slide real quick here. Don't be intimidated by this. It's not really that complicated. This just shows you all the little clouds that make up this environment. The ones in blue show you all the places that Salesforce is playing. If you look along the left, you see a cloud for we use a service called Lithium for the discussion boards. You see ideas there, working up from the bottom. We used a blogging service to house all of the resource center, and then on up, we use Amazon.com actually for some login capabilities, and then we use a service for our download. The way that Salesforce plays in all this thing is knitted together. You know, it has a common, the look and feel is all the same. The single sign-on is used to log you into different services. It's totally transparent to you that if you go from ideas and you click into the discussion boards that you've actually gone to a different site. It all looks the same. It looks like a totally integrated package with the same user experience, same look and feel, same navigation everywhere. We use Force.com to do our authentication, and all the registrations go into Salesforce. So we use it for that. And on the back end, marketing people love to segment everything. Break it down. Which neighborhoods are getting the most use? Show me reports, show me dashboards for this. Show me what our growth is. All of that is done using Salesforce reporting on the back end. We also even use Salesforce to manage some of the content that is on the home pages for the various neighborhoods. And then finally, it's all completely integrated with our CRM systems. The activity that's going on the site flows into Eloqua, which is our digital marketing system. And then when significant enough interest is indicated, we push leads into Salesforce, and our inside salespeople follow up on those leads and determine if they're qualified enough to actually have a salesperson start working on it. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so just to wrap it up, I hope you were able to hear some stories from both B2C perspective and a B2B perspective about how you can engage your community and get a lot of business value out of it. One observation that I saw that was interesting for me was both companies kind of started out more as a sort of an outreach to customers to kind of get them engaged, but then they found that there was actually a lot of business value that they got out of it. So it really affected the bottom line. I think because social media is a new space, a lot of people are fairly uncertain about what those things might be, and so hopefully you got a little taste of some of the things that can come out of it if you guys decide to go forward and implement solutions like this. I think the other key point is to make sure that you're not just whole hog taking features that you see on Facebook or Twitter or MySpace and kind of blindly implementing everything. It's really important to kind of make sure that you're thinking about the business sort of justifications or the business goals that you want to achieve by doing these things. A lot of times I see companies just try to get a clone of Facebook onto their community site, and of course, it's sort of a ghost town. So you really have to pick and choose, does this really provide business value to me? Is it also beneficial to my customers? And then kind of have a plan for implementing these things. If these things are interesting for you, next steps, obviously, please talk to other customers, such as Starbucks and FICO, who've been really successful in this space. Go down to our demo booths, see some of our demos that we have for community, and also talk to our representatives. So if you have a CSM that's engaged with you guys or a sales representative, ask them to show you about the products that we have and the business cases that we've worked on with customers. So now we'll go into a question and answer session. Please step forward to the mic or just raise your hand, and if you guys have any questions, ask away. Yes, go ahead.
Have these initiatives changed the way that your staff can handle? As you mentioned, the morning moderators. Is that their full-time job?
Yeah, no. The answer is no, and that's a great question actually because it's difficult. It's something that we launched back in April 2008 when everybody was swamped and maxed out, and we were going through layoffs even, and so we needed to figure out a way to wrap this into their roles, and that's where it kind of gets back to making sure you have leadership advocacy to make sure that they're setting each of our teams up for success. If you're a moderator in food or you're a moderator in Starbucks Card, to make sure that those people have the bandwidth. So they're asked to do, well, let me say, they're initially asked to do 8 hours a week of moderation. Realistically, they had 0 to give. What the actual moderation time they spend now is probably, 1 to 2 hours, maybe closer to 1. per week. So that's an opportunity for us, is to figure out how to build it into the organization, kind of build it into the fabric of how we do things.
Right, next question.
Would you both be able to expand a little more on how your design and organization of these community sites has changed with feedback from users?
The feedback from our users has been so we're doing a couple of things, all right? One of the feedbacks that we got is that initially a lot of stuff was wide open, okay? You didn't have to, you could see the content. We have a lot of users that want private content, all right? One of them is partners, for example, and we actually added a partner neighborhood. I didn't talk about it, but that was one of the first things that we added. The other thing that we're still working on and still trying to understand is how to have private content about. I mean, we have private message boards that require authorization in order to get to these. I'll give you an example. Obviously, fraud is a very sensitive situation. It's not something you want to talk openly in the public because the fraudsters are out there trying to get ahead of you. So we have instituted some private boards, but it's been difficult because people haven't been as active in those boards, because you have to come in, you have to get authorized, and then it's a very small group of people in banks that actually would be authorized to participate. And you would also want to authorize people from the FBI and law enforcement and stuff like that. So that, we have actual examples, boards where we've been pretty successful, but we're still working on that to make that more successful. But that's an area that we got feedback on that we're trying to.
I'm curious what you mean by design too, because so there's a couple things at Starbucks that we've done where we've done a design refresh. So just in look and feel of the site, which is important for Starbucks customers to see that we're kind of just changing the environment for them. But then there's also user behavior and looking and seeing how they're actually using it. And one thing that I forgot to mention regarding answers is that you have to be really careful if this is your first community that you're putting out, if you're building an ideas community, to realize that people are going to latch onto it because it's their first social experience, and they're going to use it for conversation, they're going to use it for complaints, they're going to use it for to try to get answers about things. And one of the problems that we had is we put it out there and we lost focus. People weren't just using it for ideas. And so we had to quickly kind of figure out how to rein that back in. And part of the answer to that was building more communities that do different things. So adding communities like Answers will really help us in the future to pull those things off of ideas. So, yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
Yes.
I have a question, follow-up question regarding what you said just now. We, as an organization, already have other communities like blogs, forums, and some other communities that are users friendly. We are also planning to implement ideas portal. So we wanted to understand if there, if this ties in into an overall web strategy, do we need to change the strategy for other media content? And the second question that I have here is, does the ideas portal start competing with other channels because you have the same group of users who are using all the channels? So how to manage that competition internally?
Yeah.
Were you asking that from B2C or B2B?
More from a B2B perspective.
So let me take I understood your second question a little better, so let me take that one first. I think your question was, if you already have forums and stuff and you're going to add ideas, and are the two things going to compete between the forums and ideas? I don't think so. And the reason, that's why in the talk what I was saying is that ideas are really great. People want to post ideas and they want to have conversation about those ideas and want to see the ideas ranked. But there's a whole other world for at least in our business in terms of talking about what are the best practices. How did you leverage the tool to solve this business problem, so to speak, and then the process that's around that. We have certain process issues, in terms of how the business operates. How did you solve that? those types of questions tend to go on the forums. They're not ideas. They're just like, help me. There are also questions that you get in terms of I use the software this way and I'm having trouble trying to get, not a bug, but I'm having trouble in terms of getting it to do this. How is this solved? And people weigh in and explain that. It's not an idea. It's a discussion about how to apply the software. So we've never really seen that sort of a competition. It's been relatively clear for people which place they go for which type of thing. We didn't really educate them so much as we tried to, on the pages, put information. I didn't show you a demo. There wasn't time today, but put information on the pages that help people understand how they apply it. I'm sure in your forums you already have frequently asked questions, and you have a sort of description of what the purpose of the forum is, because you may have more than one message board, and you have to describe what the purpose of a particular message board is. In that description, that clarifies it for the users in terms of how you're expecting them. Your expectations may be wrong, and then you have to adjust and react to your users, but how you're expecting them to use it.
Cool. Yes, the gentleman in the back a little bit. Yeah, right there, Hugh. Yeah.
How do you go about mining the good ideas? Can you kind of talk about that a bit more? Because Starbucks, when you said there's like 80,000 ideas, but only 49 have been implemented. It seems like a really low number. But how do you go about picking them?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is a little bit hard to do that with as many ideas that come in the door every day, but that's where the 40 moderators come in, because if you just have somebody who's focused on Starbucks Card, they're just looking for those things. We also have categories on the site, so you can look by category. So if you're searching coffee or community, you can at least sort that way.
Yeah.
So that helps as well.
And just to add to that, I think the ratio of ideas implemented to ideas gotten is the same across. It's the same with our organization. I'm sure it's the same with a lot of our ideas customers. And I think that's fine. The community doesn't mind that. So a lot of the questions that I get when we initially start talking to people is, hey, are people going to get mad if we don't implement every single idea that's kind of in the top 30 or something? And as long as you're kind of making sure you're actively communicating back and forth with the community, that's really all they care about, that they're involved in the discussion. They know that you have a business to run and you got to make decisions based on your business, but just being able to sort of let them be part of that conversation is really important to them.
I think it's a really good question, though, because it goes back to the value you're providing to your customers, which was a miss for Starbucks when we put this out there. And at the time we put it out to customers, it was around a shareholder meeting, and it was 25 ideas had been launched. And actually, for a multi-billion-dollar company like Starbucks to intake those thousands of ideas from our customers and launch 2 per month, essentially, that's huge for all that has to go on internally in our company to launch something out to our tens of thousands of stores. That's a big deal. So, But our customers don't know that if we don't show them that value or the life cycle of an idea, or maybe even showing them what it actually takes to develop and create a product internally within a company like Starbucks. Maybe they would understand that, wow, 49 ideas really is a big number rather than it feeling like a small number, because perception is reality. So.
There's a question in the back, gentlemen.
For both of you, what metric or story was kind of instrumental in getting the organization to get on board and exploring kind of these new, scary, talking to your customers things?
So you saw so your question is basically what really convinced management to move forward and build this thing? And in the talk I lay out the basic reasons, the customer loyalty, wanting to have our customers transform us. That's kind of a visionary thing. Nancy in her talk mentioned that you have to sort of have internal support. You have to have a sponsor, and senior management. And we had one. And we had someone who was visionary and really believed it, because there's a lot of people that were concerned about it. I was up front and told you about the concerns with ideas, the concerns with the discussion boards, and those types of things. And you'll always have that. At the end of the day, there was a belief, you can't prove it in the beginning, quantitative, that it would become a leading source of leads for us, which is demand generation is really important to us, especially in the times that we're in now. And so now looking back, it's become the second leading source of leads for us, and that's proved to be true. But you can't prove that up front. And again, getting back to what I said, you come here to talk to your peers and hear what they're saying so that you can get that sort of reinforcement. If you have that vision and you think that this is going to work, that's part of the reason for doing this and part of the reason for the community.
For Starbucks, it's kind of a funny story. Actually, for us, the way it started was Howard Schultz and Mark Benioff were both vacationing in Hawaii, and they somehow found each other. They were staying at the same hotel or something, and they had breakfast together, and Mark goes, "Hey, Howard, wouldn't this be really cool if, you launched this at Starbucks?" And then Howard started thinking about that and then came back, and it was this full, again, I mean, really fast build because of that interaction. Now, not everybody's going to have that interaction to kickstart your project, but leadership advocacy is really important. The other thing, too, is has anyone heard of Starbucks gossip? If you haven't, don't go there. It's not a good space. But it is a site that we had our eye on for a long time, and a lot of conversation happens on the Starbucks gossip site. And there are Starbucks partners in there. There are tons of Starbucks customers in there having conversation around ideas, complaints, just having that connection. And that's when we started to go, okay, people are really gravitating towards this kind of a space, so we need to build our own and bring it internally and actually do something with this information so that we can make better decisions and have that business intelligence internally rather than allowing for it to happen out there.
Gotcha. Yes.
Nancy, I have a follow-up question for your last answer. You said that you were letting customers know where you are in the process and how long it takes to actually implement stuff here. I've been on your site before, and I noticed that so you're working on this idea, but how do you let them know what the process actually is or where you are in the process?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm sure Jeff also has some thoughts on this. I don't know that we've really solved for that yet. I think it's kind of a call out when we did our gap analysis to go, we need to somehow show them how this all works. Maybe it's a video, maybe it's a bunch of videos on the site where we kind of show them real time how we are working on these things. Maybe it's some kind of a graphic. I don't know what it is, but when Jeff redesigned the site just recently, we did make some of those changes to try to show a little more clearly that, yeah, these are the ones we're looking at, these are the ones that are in queue to launch, to show that progression a little bit. But I think a gap that we still have is exactly what you said, which is, what is that life cycle internally that has to happen where customers would look at us and go, wow, they're really taking an idea from a customer and routing it all the way through this very long, drawn-out, difficult process internally to make that 49 number feel really big. I don't know that we've solved for it, but those are the kinds of things that you need to just keep thinking about and trying to solve for. So.
All right, we're right up against our time limit, so thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Please come up and ask us questions if you have any questions afterwards. Also, if you can complete a survey, there's a chance to win some small prizes. So thank you very much, everybody.